when I bought the old ranch-style house at the end of Elmwood Drive. I thought I'd found a slice of peace. It was cheap, secluded, and had a big backyard. The only catch: it sat inside a homeowners association, the Elmwood Estates. HOA, ruled by a woman everyone quietly called Karen. Not her nickname, her actual name. And she lived up to every stereotype imaginable. From the first week, she made her presence known. A polite knock would precede her stepping halfway into my yard, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Dean," she'd say with that fake smile, "your lawn violates the community aesthetic standard. The grass was 2 inches too tall. The fence clashed with neighborhood colors. Even my mailbox was unapproved." It was like living under a dictatorship disguised as a suburban dream. I tried to play nice. I trimmed, painted, smiled. But every week, Karen found something new. My gravel driveway, non-conforming. My rusted shed, an eyesore. My dog, Max, too loud. She even took photos, actual photos, of my property to document violations. One evening, at a neighborhood meeting, Karen stood up in front of everyone and announced, "Mr. Dean's property has become a joke. It lowers the tone of our community." Laughter followed. The humiliation stung, but I said nothing. I just sat there, my jaw tight, while she smugly checked her notes. The funny thing was, I didn't care much for the HOA's approval. I bought the property because it sat on an oddly cheap piece of land. My grandfather had told me once, decades ago, that the area used to be farmland with weird black puddles that ruined crops. Back then, nobody knew what they were. I remembered that detail, and it stayed in the back of my mind. By spring, I'd had enough of Karen's harassment. One day, after she left, another violation notice pinned to my door, this time about improper soil coloration. I stomped out to the backyard and dug into the ground out of frustration. The shovel hit something soft and sticky. I thought it was mud, but the smell was sharp and heavy, like asphalt on a hot day. I wiped my hand on my jeans and froze. It wasn't mud. It was black. Thick. Slick. It clung to my fingers like glue. That night, I stared at the dark stain on my palm under the kitchen light. Could it be? Could that weird legend my grandfather told me be true? Karen thought my property was a joke. But something told me she was about to eat her words. The next morning, I called a local geology consultant, just to satisfy my curiosity. I told him I'd found a strange black substance seeping through the soil. Within hours, 2 men in dusty pickup trucks rolled up my driveway with sampling equipment. Karen appeared on her porch like a hawk, arms crossed, glaring across the cul-de-sac. The geologist, a tall man named Harris, crouched by the hole I dug and scooped up a bit of the dark liquid into a jar. He sniffed it, rubbed it between his fingers, and grinned. "Sir," he said, "you may have just struck oil." I thought he was joking. Oil. Like actual oil. He nodded. "Crude oil. Looks natural, too. We'll run lab tests, but this could be something." Karen was already storming across the street, her clipboard practically shaking. "Excuse me," she snapped. "You can't drill here without HOA approval." Harris laughed. "Ma'am, we're not drilling. Just testing." But that didn't calm her. She took photos of them. Of me, of the dirt. Muttering about community violations and environmental hazards. I ignored her. For once, I felt something powerful stirring beneath my frustration. A sense that the universe was finally throwing me a bone. 2 days later, Harris called back. His voice buzzed with excitement. "It's confirmed. You've got a shallow oil deposit, Dean. A real one. It's small, but if it extends deeper, you might be sitting on a major pocket." The news hit like lightning. My quiet, annoying little property might actually be worth millions. I didn't tell Karen, of course. Not yet. But word travels fast in suburban neighborhoods. Within a week, neighbors whispered every time I walked by. Trucks started showing up with survey gear. And then, the media caught wind. Local reporters wanted interviews. Karen was livid. She called an emergency HOA meeting, ranting that I'd violated community standards by attracting industrial attention. She demanded I cease all oil-related activities. But the best part? When the state confirmed that mineral rights in this area belonged to landowners, not the HOA. Which meant, it was all mine. Every drop. As the drills prepared to dig deeper, I caught Karen watching from her window. The woman who called my home a joke now stared at it like a dragon guarding someone else's treasure. She had no idea just how rich my eyesore was about to make me. The first few weeks of drilling turned Elmwood Drive into chaos. Trucks, workers, and equipment came daily. And the air hummed with the sound of opportunity. But not everyone shared my excitement, especially Karen. She filed noise complaints, environmental complaints, even aesthetic disruption reports. Each time, the county brushed her off. The operation was fully legal, fully permitted, and fully out of her control. That burned her worse than anything. Neighbors who once avoided me started showing up at my door with cookies and fake smiles. "Hey, Dean, buddy, congrats on the find," one said, pretending we'd ever been friends. I wasn't fooled. Everyone wanted a piece of the black gold. But it wasn't all glory. Reporters hounded me. Surveyors kept showing up unannounced. My quiet backyard became a minor oil field. The constant drilling shook my windows. And the smell of petroleum clung to everything. I started to wonder if wealth came at the cost of peace. One evening, I caught Karen pacing at the end of my driveway. "Dean," she said, her tone sugar-sweet. "The HOA board would like to discuss a potential revenue-sharing agreement." I nearly laughed. "Revenue sharing? You called my property a joke 2 months ago." Her smile cracked. "Well, circumstances have changed. The community deserves compensation for the disruption." I stepped closer. "Karen, you told everyone my home was an embarrassment. You made my life miserable. And now that there's money involved, you want in." She crossed her arms. "The HOA will pursue legal action if necessary." That was her biggest mistake. My lawyer, yes. I'd hired one by now, sent her a letter the next day citing property rights, harassment history, and defamation. She went quiet after that. Weeks passed. The drilling struck deeper, and then the big news hit. The deposit was massive, part of a previously unmapped oil pocket stretching under multiple lots. But since mine was the access point, I held the key. Offers poured in from companies, one after another, each with more zeros than the last. I accepted a deal that secured me for life. That night, as the rigs packed up and the checks cleared, I stood in my yard, the same patch Karen once called trash. Now, it was liquid gold territory. And for the first time since I moved to Elmwood, Karen's porch light stayed off. Money changes everything. Within months, my life flipped upside down. I sold mineral rights but kept the land. And the payout made me the wealthiest man in the neighborhood. Maybe the entire county. The house that ruined community value now sat on the richest ground for miles. Karen tried to save face. She sent out newsletters praising the HOA's commitment to supporting local development. But everyone knew the truth. She'd gone from tyrant to background noise. And every neighbor who once sneered at me now pretended they'd always supported me. The funniest part? The HOA couldn't touch a dime. My property, once deemed non-compliant, was now the pride of Elmwood. A historical site of economic significance. Even the mayor came by for a photo. But with wealth came attention. Developers begged me to sell. Oil companies offered more money than I could count. Yet, I couldn't forget the months of mockery. The violations, the late-night knocks on my door. So I did something unexpected. I built a fence. Not just any fence, a tall, soundproof steel barrier around the backyard. On it, I hung a sign, "Private Property, No HOA Access." Karen nearly had a meltdown. She stood outside, shouting through the gate that it violated neighborhood aesthetics. I smiled and waved. "Sue me," I said. She didn't. She couldn't. Eventually, the HOA meetings dwindled. Residents stopped showing up. Karen resigned, for personal reasons. Though everyone knew she'd been humiliated beyond repair. I thought I'd feel victorious. Instead, I felt something deeper, satisfaction mixed with irony. The land she despised, the soil she mocked, had been sitting on untapped potential all along. It made me wonder how often people overlook value, just because it's not polished or pretty. On quiet nights, I still walk out to the backyard, now sealed and silent, and touch the ground where it all began. Beneath that earth runs a reminder, not just of wealth, but of vindication. Karen once said my home was a joke. Now, every time someone drives down Elmwood Drive, they pass the only property without an HOA plaque, the property that changed everything. And somewhere under my boots, the oil still flows, a dark, steady laugh echoing through the soil.